up with us. Good morning to both of you. Paul, that conversation with Coach Kelly was on your show. It was with you. Paul in or Paul out? Saturday is a must-win for Kelly and those Tigers.
I'm Paul out. And it's not that it isn't important. It's monumental, but he still has time later in the season to make up for a loss. And I think playing that game against Clemson gives them some wiggle room. They could, I'll leave this to Heather, but I think they could probably afford one more loss than everybody else because only Texas has a tougher, perhaps, opening game. But in spite of all that, Kelly seemed pretty cool yesterday. I just hope he's back next week for his appearance.
HD, we'll turn to you then and find out, where does this week one game at Clemson rank amongst those LSU and Brian Kelly have to get to? Because we know they also go to Tuscaloosa, Norman, and Oxford.
Well, this might be the most difficult game on the whole schedule for them, even more so than going to Ole Miss, going to Bama, which our computers say are more difficult than this one. But the reason is because you know what you're getting in this trip to Clemson, and that's facing a veteran quarterback in Cade Klubnik, who has his top 3 receivers back, and a veteran defensive line that might be one of the best in the country. I talked to Dabo Sweeney yesterday about this, and he said we have got to get after their quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. If we don't, we're probably not going to win this game. So when you look at LSU, Paul is absolutely right. They have the number 11 overall schedule strength in the country. There are opportunities to make up this loss if that were to happen. But this is huge because of the talent they're facing, and they could wind up be facing ultimately the ACC champ.
Winner gets to keep the Death Valley nickname as well. HD, Paul alluded to it. We also have a monumental top 3 game in Columbus. Number 1, Texas. Number 3, Ohio State. Heather, what are realistic expectations from Arch Manning game 1 at the Shoe?
Well, Paul probably has higher expectations, but I talked to Sark yesterday about this, and he said he doesn't want him to be superhuman. Just play within your game, do what you do. They haven't had any extra meetings this week. There's no added pressure coming from within the program. Sark told me that Arch has already won over the locker room, so go out there and win the game. You know, I think when you look at it and watch him, there's going to be mistakes, but because he's been such a leader in the locker room, can he overcome those, whatever hurdles might happen during the game, and get his team past that?
Paul, you mentioned it a moment ago. Number 1, Texas might have the toughest week 1 test. They opened as 2.5-point underdogs. Now Ohio State, it's down to them being still favored by 1.5 on ESPN Bet. Paul in or Paul out? Texas should be favored instead Saturday at Ohio State.
I'm in on that. And listen, I don't make the odds, but if I did, I would put Texas as a significant favorite. Now, significant meaning maybe 3.5 or 4 points. I just think they have a better roster from top to bottom. They also have a more coherent coaching staff. And people will say, well, Ryan Day's still the head coach. Yes, he is, but he lost both coordinators last year. And I've noticed over my 80 or 90 years of covering college football, that matters when you have 2 new coordinators in a system, especially playing the number 1 team on day 1.
80, 90 years covering college football, Paul. First time since at least the AP polls debut 1950, we have 3 top 10 matchups in week 1. Sunday night, it's number 6 Notre Dame at number 10 Miami. Heather, I'll come to you. What's at stake for the Irish here on the road in terms of their playoff hopes?
Well, I want to remind college football fans that this is a straight seeding model this year. So Notre Dame, as an independent, can get one of those top 4 seeds if it's ranked in the committee's top 4 on Selection Day, which means a first round bye. Yes, I just fast forwarded all the way to Selection Day in talking about the season opener for Notre Dame, because if they beat Miami, they could have a win against the eventual ACC champs. I talked to Marcus Freeman about this team. This team could be better than last year's team, which played for the national title. So this is a huge game on the road against a talented team that, oh, by the way, has Carson Beck at quarterback.
For just the second time in the last 25 years, Miami's in the top 10 and a home underdog. The other was 2017, also to Notre Dame. Hurricanes won that one 41-8. HD, Paul, thank you.
Going down to the other Death Valley to face the Clemson Tigers. Natty runner-ups Notre Dame travel to the 305 to face Carson Beck and the Canes. And Bill Belichick makes his debut as a head coach of North Carolina, with TCU coming to Chapel Hill. And joining me now, it is a man that I feel like sharing the same feelings and sentiments, our college football analyst, Chip Patterson. Chip, we've got a jam-packed lineup of matchups that feel like college football playoff showdowns this early in the season. Let's start with Arch Manning and the Longhorns going to face the Buckeyes. Arch has said he's ready for this moment. He's dreamt of being in this position. How do you think he fares, though, on the road in that environment?
Oh, I think it is going to work out very well. It's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, and it comes from inside that Texas facility because DeAndre Moore, the Texas wide receiver, early on in fall camp was asked to compare playing with Arch Manning versus his previous quarterback, and he said it's like going from, quote, baby wheels to, quote, super wheels, which, good gravy. And also, what does that mean for what we're going to see from Arch Manning? Because when I think about wheels, I think about the athletic talent that Manning has shown, that a lot of his time that he has spent on the field in the most competitive games has been with specialized packages that allow him to use his legs. And going up against an extremely talented and aggressive Ohio State defense, that means we might see some of that escapability. It means we might see some designed runs and, yes, maybe even some explosive plays. So while we are looking at Texas and a loaded offense that, yes, does have a player like Ryan Wingo that we're excited to see, I think that the upgrade that Texas is going to get in terms of quarterback mobility going from Quinn Ewers to Arch Manning is going to bring an entirely new dynamic to this offense. So I am looking forward to seeing super wheels in the shoe against those Ohio State defense.
Yeah, can't wait for that one. Now, another pivotal matchup in week one, the so-called battle for Death Valley. Which is the real Death Valley, right, Chip? It's been a debate going on forever. A lot of people believe that fourth-ranked Clemson is built to make a run in the college football playoff and maybe for a national title. But you could say the same thing about LSU with Garrett Nussmeier coming back under center. But you believe it's Clemson that has a lot to prove. Why do you think that?
Because if they were to lose here, it would just be more blood in the water when it comes to Clemson against the SEC. The Tigers went 0-3 against the SEC last season. Quarterback Cade Klubnik losing every single time that he went up against an SEC defense. And so I think that that is the angle of this that is going to be the real prove-it territory for the Clemson Tigers, because I believe they are so far ahead of the rest of the ACC. All they need to do is make it to the ACC title game. They'll probably win the conference. They'll make the college football playoff. But when you have this kind of team, which, as we know, is loaded up with players that are projected to be first, second round picks in the NFL draft, you have to capitalize, because Dabo Swinney has a chance to prove that his method of roster building, player development over portal, can be a way to compete for a national championship. But if Clemson just gets into the college football playoff and is a one and done type team, well, then he is not going to be proven as correct, as it will have been seen that a top four team was not able to back that up with success in the postseason. And so I think that for the Tigers, the prove it stage, you're playing at home. I mean, a loss truly would be devastating for the narrative. Not devastating for the Clemson Tigers and Dabo Swinney and all the things that they want to accomplish. Heck, they could still win a national championship after losing the opener. But if you're playing at home like they are, loaded up along the roster, then I do think a loss would be devastating for the conversation. So it's a prove-it moment for Clemson.
No doubt about that, and this year as good as any for Dabo Swinney to be able to make that run. Very loaded roster. Now, Chip, each offseason there's usually one storyline that dominates the college football down period. This year, of course, it was Bill Belichick's hiring in North Carolina. We know his coaching pedigree at the pro level, but what do you think a Bill Belichick coached college football team looks like?
I think it's one that tries to avoid mistakes, and that's what's going to be so key against TCU in that opener on Monday night, because I like the way that they utilize the portal to really beef up the defense. And it's been a long time since North Carolina football has had a defense you can rely on, whether it's Mac 2.0, Larry Fedora. I mean, we've seen the Tar Heels, James Madison hang 70 on them, right? I mean, it's just not been a good defensive program. I think Bill Belichick with the portal additions, they are going to solidify some of that defense. but the environment, the stage, it's going to be so unique. The spotlight will be so massive. You really need to make sure that Bill Belichick's communication can get those players locked in, because it is not a team that can overwhelm you with all of its offensive skill talent. It will be a group that's going to try to play good defense and run the football effectively. But if you are going to win that way, you can't be making the mistakes that you might see from a brand new roster on a big stage. Can Bill Belichick communicate the kind of focus this team needs? We'll see on Monday night.
It's so funny because, a couple seasons ago it was all about Deion Sanders and Colorado. Now it's all about Bill Belichick. Completely different personalities. It's going to be fun to definitely watch. Now, Chip, we've talked about all of these other programs, but we have not talked about one that dominated college football for almost 15 years, the Alabama Crimson Tide, year 2 under Kalen DeBoer. Obviously, they had a pretty good season last year. It wasn't a failure, but the fans down at T-Town. Yeah. Anything less than competing for an SEC title or a college football playoff berth, it's a disappointment. So what do you think of the Tide's chances of winning the SEC in year 2 and competing for the college football playoff?
Yeah, I think this is a group. They're my pick to win the SEC. I think that they are going to make a deep run in the college football playoff. I think they're good enough to win the national championship. We talk a lot about Ohio State. We talk about Texas, but even Georgia as well. But, Sudu, I will tell you that if you want to combine talent and experience, of which Alabama has a ton of, I kind of think Alabama might have the best roster in all of college football. Now, they have an unproven quarterback in Ty Simpson who is unable to beat out Jalen Milroe the last couple of years. They've got a few new pieces that need to get settled in for them to take the next step. But last season was undoubtedly a disappointment by Alabama standards. You were sitting in the driver's seat to make the SEC championship game until you tripped over your feet against Oklahoma. And then you ended the season with a really poor performance against a Michigan team that had a MAC quarterback. I just think that for Alabama, the chip on the shoulder, the revenge tour, all of it is setting up. And so what I'm excited to see when Alabama takes the field against Florida State is whether I'm right, which is what we all want to see about some college football in week 1. Were we right about these opinions we've been talking about for the last month or 6 weeks? And so I think the Crimson Tide are going to win the SEC, but I need to see a championship caliber showing in Tallahassee for me to feel like that's true after 1 week.
Yeah, if I'm going to put my money on anybody being right, it's you, Chip. And we obviously can't wait to see it all go down in week 1. Thanks a lot, Chip. And for more